I'm like, who's talking right now? I have no idea.
Listen, that's kind of the way we've done the whole podcast from the start, which is just start doing something, and as somebody comes up with a critique, you'd be like, oh yeah, I never really thought about that.
Just iterate.
Yeah, good point.
Thanks. So yeah, my name is Fred. I'm a certified Scrum Trainer. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So the Scrum Guide just went through a revision, right?
Yes.
Recently, right? Well, not recently, but a couple months ago.
It's recent enough.
And the change process of actually like making the change, I'm interested in this because I was in an organization a while ago. God, it's been a couple of years now. I was in an organization a while ago that had bylaws, and then amending the bylaws was like you put it on the forum where all of the interested party representatives were, and then they would all argue about what the changes were, and there'd be heated debates, and sometimes you have to have meetings about the, like, I'm wondering if it's
a huge overhead.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's as ridiculous and chaotic as my experience, the actual line by line changes.
Yeah, you might not be as excited about what I understand as the reality is. It's not as exciting, I don't think. So Scrum Guide, as I understand it, so Jeff Sutherland, Ken Swaber, right, both started Scrum. Then they went their separate ways. After starting Scrum Alliance, they went their separate ways. Jeff was more on the Scrum Alliance side. Ken did his own thing. Mm-hmm. And they had the scrumguides.org, which was actually maintained by Jeff Sutherland and his son. And so Jeff Sutherland has an agreement with Ken Swaber that they will agree and work on the Scrum Guide together. And then so typically how it happens right now is Jeff's been long disconnected from the Scrum Alliance, so much so that he's got his own Scrum.inc, and Scrum Alliance and Scrum Inc. have lawsuit going on about who's taking business from who and stuff like that. So Jeff Sutherland's son updates the Scrum Guide with Ken Swaber. Basically, they both come to an agreement. It's either Jeff Sutherland's son updates it. I want to say maybe Ken Swaber updates it, but basically it's whatever Ken, Jeff, and his son agree to is what goes in the Scrum Guide. Oh. So it's the three of them. They determine it, but they do take input from the community in the sense that they just hear what's going on out there. I know when the last one came out, they did to the Certified Scrum Trainer Guide community. We got a sneak preview, so to speak, of the guide. And then everyone got to voice their opinion, but it's really up to those three guys if they decide to take it in or not.
Oh man!
And so so Jeff's still in the field doing coaching and business. So is Ken. So they take what they've learned in the field and apply it to the Scrum Guide to make it this or that. But yeah, there's no big committee and people arguing. It's just we all just wait and say, let's see what Ken and Jeff put out. And they put it out. And we're like, okay, this is the gods have spoken. This is the new Scrum Guide.
Oh,
that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, that was completely different than what I was expecting. Yeah.
I hope they have a decent succession plan if this thing's to survive.
Yeah, Jeff Sutherland's son. Yeah, he's taking over the reins for updating it. I think because I remember once I talked to him, I can't remember. I was just like, but you guys. It's like really just one of you's updating it, and you're just hoping the other one agrees and getting their opinion on it. It seemed like, but yeah.
The old Google Docs trick, where one of you owns the Google Doc.
That's
and
right.
Updates it, and then you have to go look at the change history. What did you put in there?
Yep.
And then you just post it to the Reddit forum, and everyone's like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" downvote it to hell.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
And then Scrum Alliance and Scrum.org have agreed to adhere to the Scrum Guides. So Scrum Alliance is still trying to catch up with their tests because right now they have a CSM exam, but it's based on the old guide. They had made it an initiative to align the exam with the Scrum Guide, and as they were doing that, the new Scrum Guide came out.
Huh.
So it's interesting because when it switched over, we had to teach to the new Scrum Guide, but then the exam was based on the old Scrum Guide. But it happens to work out where none of the questions, you wouldn't get a question wrong because it was based off one Scrum Guide or the other.
Yeah.
Right. So if it said like, if it said something about a role, you would know, okay, the new one's accountabilities, but the answer is still the same.
Yeah.
So in that sense. Yeah. So what was interesting was some people in the community were saying, well, because I think there was a company they were trying to come up with their own Scrum Guide. So it's like, what stops somebody creating their own Scrum Guide, like, the Bob's Scrum Guide, and then people start, I like his Scrum Guide better, and then it starts getting like that's not what Scrum is. So there was a little worry about that, where if those people they couldn't come to agreement, people would start taking over the Scrum Guide and making up their own and deviating from the original.
I need the Om Scrum Guide.
Scrum Guide.
I'll follow that, man. Like I can't. Like, when is enough, man? Like, the need to infinitely customize everything. That's always the thing that I fight with when I go to a client. Oh, that doesn't work here. Retrospective doesn't work here because the team suggests something, and then you got to get management to sign off and whatever to do, to change something. Like, what are we doing, guys?
We talked about that on one of the podcasts. How
yeah,
people who say that doesn't work here usually can link it back to an experience they had. They tried it, they did it wrong, and it didn't work. So now they just hide behind that. Oh, it doesn't work here.
Yeah,
it's not for us, right? But you never did it right to begin with.
I mean, that's a controversial saying. I even say it in class. I'm like, Scrum works 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. And people are like, nah, that's not true. If you think about, and even anyone listening to this, think about what I just said. Scrum works 100% of the time. And you're probably thinking about a scenario or a location where it didn't work, but I guarantee you it's because you weren't doing 100% Scrum. Right. It's always like you left out some big, huge gaping hole, and then you can't blame Scrum. It's like you said, we don't do retrospectives. Well, that's not Scrum. We don't have a cross-functional team. Well, that's not Scrum. Our teams can't do face-to-face. Well, that's not Scrum. It's like you're doing elements of Scrum, but that's not Scrum. So, yeah, of course you have problems. And every single problem rolls up to one of the 12 Agile principles.
Yeah.
Every single problem we've ever run into, I'm sure, Om, that you've run into, you could trace it up to.
Yep.
One of the 12 Agile principles are not being followed. Business people are not being face-to-face with developers daily basis or whatever it is. Architectures, requirements, and designs aren't coming from a single, cross-functional team. So.
But companies there's so many companies that just say, well, we can't be purist about Agile, so we're just going to adopt it for us. And then, like you said, they're not doing Scrum. Mm-hmm. And then when it fails, they go, well, Scrum didn't work. What they should say is our version of Scrum
That's right, yeah.
Right?
Our version, our Scrum butt of it didn't work. Because you're right, it's like our version of it didn't work. I'm glad they're being more Scrum. I'm glad they're being more Agile, but you can't say it didn't work.
I just don't understand why you would put in that amount of effort to try to reinvent the wheel when it's all laid out for you.
Yeah. I can see where they try to customize your event to fit their environment, but to your point, it's like recognize that when you're failing in something, it's not because you need to now is the time to say, okay, we tried to do it without this or in a certain way, it's not working, so let's add that in there or let's bring that into the mix.
We did. We had a whole podcast about this. I listen to it afterward. When I do editing, normally I have to listen to the podcast like 3 times.
Oh man, so you know the material.
Yeah, I know.
It got all memorized.
It's ridiculous. So when I'll edit a podcast, I have to listen to it a bunch of times. And then I'll listen to it and I'll cut clips from it. Like the last podcast, we did about an hour 45 minutes in the room. It condensed down to about an hour 15, hour 10, hour 15. And then I cut 8 clips out of that. They were like little 2-3 minute clips out of that, right? Sorry, I went on too long. I forgot what the hell.
I'm curious how long that takes you. How much work is that?
It's all I think I must have listened through that hour 15 4 times maybe. So I woke
you're doing
up
like 5-6 hours of work.
I woke up this morning.
It's a day, really.
Yeah, I woke up this morning at 6 a.m. from about 8:30 until 1:30, which is when I left to go to the office. This is 5 hours. The whole time that I was in the office, I was working as well. And then that's just the clips. That doesn't even take into account anything I did for the main. So easily 2 work days. I would say easily 15 hours.
I know why I don't do podcasts.
No, yeah, it's the funny thing about it is I block off Friday. Like this has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about. I'm so glad we're off topic. It gives me extra time to hydrate. This is pretty good by itself. I added bang because I'm cheating. I'm trying to stay awake.
So anyway, back to your topic or podcast adventure.
Can't remember what I was talking about. I was talking about wasting a bunch of time.
How much time you spend creating these things, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is coming up with clips and stuff like that. We talked about it at the beginning before we started recording. Is just like the space is just completely jammed. Mm-hmm. The space is completely jammed. The Agile space, as far as podcasts, everybody you think of as an expert.
Oh, you know what? Sorry to interrupt you, but I was just thinking. You said that we should get on what's that chatting one? Just that app.
Clubhouse.
Yeah,
we definitely should do that.
Do it right now. I'm already remembering. We're talking about Agile.
No idea what you're talking about right now.
It's Clubhouse, so it's like it's like you just drop into people's rooms.
It's pretty cool. I've
just
had some pretty good experiences there.
Start a room open to everyone. Sure. Or closed. Just open everybody. See what happens.
Open up. Let's see who
Agile,
we
what's the topic? Agile and
The
Scrum.
good thing is you control who's on stage with this, so
Oh, really?
you don't have to bring anybody if you don't want to.
I don't want to.
That's why I mentioned it.
Don't bring anybody? Make it closed?
No, not interested. What
People can still join,
does it,
right?
It
If it's
records
closed?
it?
Anyone could join.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just live.
Yeah.
People can just
Mm.
raise their hand, and
Oh, okay.
I'm live
I get
now
it. I
talking
get it.
to whoever.
Put it over here and put it on the stickies. I don't care. Yeah, there you go. Put it on the play mat.
There you go.
There you go.
See if anybody joins.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
All
That's
right,
why. That's why
sorry.
I got the
Clubhouse.
play
Yeah, it's called Clubhouse.
mat.
pretty
It's
cool
invite
app.
only. I think it was invite only. I'm not sure if it's still
It's
is or
open
not.
now,
It's
but
open now.
yeah,
Okay.
is
I
it?
have no
I think
idea.
that was a marketing tactic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Gmail
Okay.
was that way. I had a
That's
Gmail.
right, way
I had a
back in the
Gmail
day.
from back in the day. Yeah, I got invited.
You'd get
on
like
Gmail.
10 that you could forward out, right? I remember
yeah,
that.
Yeah. That's how long I've had a Gmail. Yeah. Dating myself right now. Mold.
Hey,
Back to Agile. Back to Scrum.
Agile. So this space you were saying, Brian, is pretty jammed, right? But there's very few that are any good.
Well, okay, so not to throw stones up in my glass house or anything. That's the thing about podcasts. There's always someone ready to tell you this is the way to do the podcast right. But like podcasts, like the medium of podcasts are not that old. So like if somebody tells me they're an expert and they know everything it takes to make a successful podcast, I'm automatically going to be suspect of of everything.
These
they're
are the
telling
people
me.
that tell you they've been doing
Yeah.
Agile for 30
And
years.
then they want you to go to their class.
Yeah.
Pay them.
Yeah, I'm out. I'm
Okay,
out.
just get a Udemy course. I don't understand why.
Yeah. Although you just hit on another topic that I want to talk about.
I would love to make a Scrum Udemy course. I mean, but you can't get certified. But it'd be by a certified Scrum Trainer. Thinking that might move it up the list. Now I'm giving everybody my ideas. So let me retract that. That's a bad idea.
It's been copyrighted too.
Sorry, I was writing. I didn't catch any of that. Oh man. No, the space is jammed because everybody you can think of that has like name recognition in the field, they have their own podcast. A lot of trainers now have their own podcasts. A lot of companies have their own podcasts. The Women in Agile podcast, I started listening to that one. I don't know why they stopped doing it or whatever, because Accenture decided to stop. Maybe somebody quit or whatever. I really don't know, but they did it for
Probably
a while.
what it is. Like the one person that's running the whole thing left, and so everyone's
probably
like,
what
well,
it was. Yeah,
that's the end of that.
Yeah, but I mean the point, but like they had good content. I listened to almost every single podcast that they had. But the point is, the space is jammed. Okay, the space is jammed. However, the nice thing about the Tampa area is like there is enough people in this area, and I think the survey just came out or whatever, where Tampa's like the top 4.
Yeah,
in
top
the
tech
nation.
company.
Yeah, for tech talent or whatever.
Yeah.
So my thinking,
Been saying that for
this is
years.
probably
Hidden
like
tech talent here.
when I joined the current company I'm at, when I joined it, that was like one of the things. Look at like the amount of expertise you have in house. Like, there's no reason not to be sharing that stuff. There's no reason not to be sharing. Does that make sense?
There's every reason to share.
Okay, yeah, there's every reason to be sharing inside. I mean, because like you look at the people at the top of the space, they're giving back freely to the community because they know that feast or famine mentality is nonsense. You can share all. You're a trainer. Like you train this material, and then people go out into the world and use the material that you train on.
Right.
And obviously some people some companies, some people, whatever, they try to bend it to fit, whatever. But, like you said, if you're applying the framework as it's intended to be, you're going to be successful, right? Now, if you're looking for something like, again, like this is my personality kicking in right now. If you're looking for something to like, let me follow, I have status meetings. Let me now call them stand-ups, and I have I have.
You're just trying to lay it on
demos.
top of what you do and not change anything.
But if you are a quote purist and you come into an organization, it's your first week or month in the organization, and you start realizing like, I'm actually trained in what this is supposed to be, and I clearly see that you guys are just relabeling your old practices.
Yeah.
That should be really apparent. At some point, you should be able to say, am I being paid enough to ignore all this stuff, or do I need to like immediately go find it?
I think that's the difference between I think that's a real difference between a purist and someone who's not a purist. Is a purist knows coming in, it ain't gonna work unless you do it right.
Right.
And they're just like, I'm not doing it, and if you don't do it right, I'm out of here. The rest of us are like, it ain't gonna work if you don't do it right. But hey, we'll hang out and try to get you as close as possible, right? Like we'll try to work within your means, but we'll get you a little bit closer. But it ain't gonna work. We know it's still not gonna work, but we'll try.
Yeah, that's where I was going before. I was like, this is like harkens back to podcast number 1 or 2 or whatever. We're like, how not to get fired.
Yeah.
Like,
and to your point, it's like, am I getting paid enough to deal with all this?
I mean, it's really like, are you getting paid enough to kind of roll over and be like, well, it is what it is for now. Yeah. Maybe, hopefully, in the future, some of these people kind of roll off, or maybe whatever.
Yeah. And even when we teach Kanban classes, like the one thing I like to point out is that what we say is Kanban is evolutionary. Mm-hmm. So you can take Kanban, you can lay it on top of your existing processes, like you're saying. Keep your titles, keep your processes in place. There's a change, but it's not as much of a change. You're visualizing your workflow, but for the most part, everything stays somewhat the same. Scrum is revolutionary. Yeah. You have to completely change how you run your business in order for it to be successful, in order to do it right. And it's a huge change that people don't realize, I think, is needed when they try to implement Scrum. Yeah. It's like, we'll just do Scrum and just, it's just to the development team, or we'll just lay it on top of our existing work.
Keep doing what we were doing before. Just use a different language.
Yeah.
It's like so many times we come back to my favorite topic on the podcast of budgeting. And it's like every time we come back to budgeting, I feel we get closer to the real root of what will solve all their problems. Is like, don't budget of like once a year we're gonna come back and we're gonna ask for this giant budget or whatever, and then we're gonna show you in phases what we're gonna deliver or whatever. Like the budgeting is always done that way.
Yeah, it's the wrong way to do it.
Like that stuff's not covered. Is that stuff covered in CSP?
No, it's not, because it's in advance. It's not. We don't cover it in CSM. We don't cover it in CSPO. We don't really cover it much. Advanced CSPO, I'm not sure if it covered much there, but it's because it's like. You're right. You're supposed to have product-based teams. The best way to do it is to say, here's your X dollars executive for the year, whatever it is, $2 million, and then turn it into something that's valuable to the company. It's the same amount every single year. Your team never changes. Your team never goes away. It's really about what new things do I want my team to work on, and the budget's always the same. It shouldn't. It's not a project-based thing. That's the problem. It's project-based thinking. Yeah. It's like, what do we need for this project? Spin up a team, and here's the budget versus...
But I talked about this in the last podcast. Your development team should be a fixed cost. You should know exactly how much. So if you have a development team that you're constantly changing people in and out of, or you're blowing them up to 15, then they go down to like 10, and then they come back up or whatever, that's not a fixed cost anymore. You're going to have to constantly go back and ask for more money if you're flexing your team up and down like that, which is kind of strange to me, right?
You could definitely do that. You could definitely derive a dollar amount per story point, right? And then you could see over time how much productivity you're getting out of your teams. But it does fundamentally assume you're keeping the teams constant, and that's
right. And then you can see the value that's being delivered. Is it worth the money you're spending?
Or maybe a financial cost, and you can maybe put that financial cost to your business value if you're tracking business value. I don't know.
So in accounting, there's a term, return on capital employed, right? ROCE, and that's what this really is, because you know your capital employed if you keep the teams constant. Right? Here's my cost per sprint, right? Yeah. Here's a blended rate, number of people, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we have a webcast on that. I mean, I've done a webcast on that where it's like, this is how you budget. It's a fixed cost, like you said. Once you know your team's velocity, now you have a cost per point, and then you always know what something's going to cost you. If it's the same team and you know their velocity and the cost is the same, you can easily predict and measure against cost versus business value.
Yeah, that stuff is wild to me. That you would try to do it any other way, because when I was a product owner, I keep going back to this all the time. When I was a product owner and a consulting product owner, I got to the company, and the company had a project manager and a pool of 30 engineers and testers or something like that. When the company wanted something done, project manager would just grab a group of people and ask them to start working on whatever, and they would basically the product owner was in the middle of everything, right? Like typical project management. Product owner? Did I say product owner?
Project manager, yeah.
This is what I meant. They would go to the project manager and say, hey, we need some changes done. We want all these changes. You can call it version 3.1 or whatever, and we need it out by this date. Like, we need XYZ changes. We need it out by this date. So they would give you the changes. They give you the date. Obviously, without a greater understanding of the the depth of the changes because they were kind of operating in feature factory mode at that point. But yeah, that was like when I came in, I was like, guys, we have 3 products going on. The company had a website product, a mobile product, and all of their back end architecture and all their back end like DevOps operations and platforms and environments. By the end of that program, I weaved everything together, so they really only had 2, but whatever, that's a whole different discussion.
Jeff Sutherland uses NPV, net present value.
Yeah.
So you can use that to compare against teams, but it's also looking at stock price, and it's a complicated mathematical formula, and there's an Excel sheet I have, but I'm like, I don't like complicated stuff like that, but it's possible. You compare basically the value of the stock prior. It's super simple versions. Value of the stock, you release something, and then what's the value of the stock? Did it go up? Did it go down? And then you get $1 per point in a sense, or
it's
$1.
only for public companies, is that right?
Yeah, it's mainly for public companies, to evaluate.
But the value of the stock isn't necessarily dependent on just what software features are going
No,
in.
but it's a big factor into the net NPV, net present value. Can you associate the cost of the stock the value of the stock going up due to the release of X?
Oh man, you just hit on my side hobby, which is trading stocks for fun and profit. Like there are so many things.
I do it for fun and loss, but
yeah. Post your loss porn.
And my
like,
cryptocurrency
Cryptocurrency. Oh man, your Dogecoin.
Yeah.
Post your Dogecoin losses.
Okay, I sold it. Yeah.
Doggy coin. I can't there's too many things to factor into the public value of stock of a company. I would be concerned if I was being judged on that, because you'd have to have a running like, these are all the things that happen with the media with my company, because the media can
that's true, yeah,
ding your company, and it has nothing to do with the software.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of formulas like cost of the team, the dates released, stock value of the date released. Like there's a bunch of stuff it calculates in there, but check it out.
I mean, I guess all things being equal, if you also have a marketing team that's kind of on top of your media presence, then I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Wow, that was all a segue from
Scrum
Guide changes. Yeah. Scrum Guide changes.
So what do you got for what would you want to ask a certified Scrum trainer?
Co-location. Let's talk about co-location, because we kind of touched on it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to kick a plug and go offline. We kind of touched on it when we were talking about co-location before. So like a big thing in the Scrum Guide was co-location, and obviously like 2020 kind of like shot a missile at one of the main things of Agile, one of the main principles of Agile. But like what I tell people all the time, even in like when I was planning with a company, I came on as a consultant, I was planning with a company, and I told them, hey, we need to meet face to face to establish a roadmap, because the company didn't have a roadmap. They basically were a feature factory when I showed up. The same company I was talking about. They basically were a feature factory when I showed up, and I'm like, hey, being a feature factory is fine and everything. I collect the same pay at the end of the day. but if you really want to get the efficiency out of changing your company to be agile, I was like, we need a roadmap. And the best people to figure out what the roadmap is the executive team. So you guys are already in the office anyway. I will fly in and I'll spend a week with you guys, and we'll figure out what our roadmap is, what the actual valuable stuff is, and where your company is going. Because they knew where the company was going. They knew what they wanted to do. It just wasn't written down anywhere.
Right.
So I was like, I'll fly in, because I really believe the best way for us to do that is to be in person to do it. I probably could have done it remotely. But
it's not as effective, I don't think.
Really, I don't.
But what's interesting is what you're talking about is not part of the Scrum Guide.
Not at all.
Because Scrum Guide's just about the Scrum team.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is outside of Scrum Guide altogether. It's almost like we call it like pre-product discovery, or it's stuff the product owner needs to be doing. Scrum just says, Scrum doesn't even say have a roadmap. Scrum just says have a vision. And that's it, right? That's just best community practices.
Yeah, product vision, yeah.
But my thoughts on co-location is, even before COVID, in class, I think the main thing I tried to get across to students was, like, if your team can't do face-to-face at all, and I don't just mean in person, I mean even on video. Yeah. I used to always say, look, you can always, one of the questions would be like, how could you do face-to-face if your team is not co-located? And they'd be like, people, we actually think about this. well, I guess you could do video conferencing. Now it's the norm, but it's really about if your team can't do face-to-face, then it shouldn't be a team.
Yeah.
The Agile principle says, face-to-face communication to and within the team. And so to me, that says if you have people in California and you have people over in India and their time zones are so far apart that they can't ever do face-to-face, they shouldn't be on a team together. You could have your Indian team, they could be face-to-face. You could have your California team. And then the product owner is the only one that's got to get up at 6 a.m. to talk to that team and then talk to this team, right? And so I think it's more about, a team that's remote now. To me, it's like don't be more than one time zone apart from the source of, say, from a single source, whatever that source is, the company, the team, the lead, whoever it is. But don't be more than a time zone apart so that everyone can do that face-to-face. But if you're 6, 7, 8 hours apart, and you can't do face-to-face because, it's just not good, then they shouldn't be a team together. I'm always against that completely.
When I had Indian team members, I told them, hey, I'm 100% okay getting on at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like 11 o'clock at night, and this is when my kids were small. I was like, I'm awake at 11 o'clock at night until 2 in the morning. I'm awake. So if you need me, I will get on. No problem.
That's funny.
Now, that's not the same way.
Yeah.
Now, it's 7:45. I'm like, bedtime. I'm ready. I'm ready to crash. I was on a project a couple of years ago, I think, where my product owner was West Coast. All my testers were out of India, and my developers were here East Coast.
That's so strange. To me, that's just like that's not.
There was no good time for it. I had like 3 hours in the morning of overlap where everyone could be available.
That's horrible.
And that's only because my Indian team members worked swing shift. They worked until 10 o'clock at night or something like that. I can't remember. And that was it. So we had maybe half a day at the.
Then you go back to the Agile principles. The best communication is face-to-face to and within the team. It's like, could they all do face-to-face to and within the team? So the answer is no. Right? It sounds like no in that scenario. And then you struggle, you have problems, you have communication issues, you have delays, and then it's like, Scrum doesn't work. You're not really doing Scrum, right? You're not adhering to the Agile principles. You're not really doing Scrum properly. Yeah, and I think that's what I find frustrating. Yeah. When people come to class and they're like, well, I'm really trying to figure out how Scrum can work for us, and we have a team, and and I'm just like, you're doing it wrong. I don't know what to tell you. Then stop doing that.
Well, I mean, they figure that's the reality of their organization, and there's nothing they can do to change it.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? It's like Scrum you have to change. The organization has to change in order to implement Scrum properly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she had a good analogy, which I always loved, was like you're at the gym working out with a trainer. The trainer's telling you what to do, and you're doing everything the trainer tells you to do. And then when you take a break or after you're done, you go in the back and you're eating a pint of ice cream.
Oh man!
And then the trainer's like, "Stop eating ice cream." And you're like, no, I want to eat ice cream. Yeah. Why? And then you complain because you're not losing weight. And then you're like, why am I not losing weight? I'm doing everything you tell me to do. And the trainer's like, well, stop eating ice cream. You're like, no, I want to eat the ice cream and lose weight and do it. You should be able to make this happen. It's like, that doesn't work that way, right? It's like.
I feel personally attacked right now.
Is that what you do? You go to the gym and then you go in the back and eat a pint of ice cream?
Man. I do love ice cream. Oh, man.
It's fine. Just don't complain to the trainer that you're not losing weight.
Right.
One half of that is people are trying to bend and fit the framework to fit inside their organization. I have to think that they're trying to make it work. You know what I mean? They're trying to make it work. They're bending when they can. When they can exert their influence, they'll do that.
That's typically why we're in there helping them, because we know you're trying and we're going to try to help you even though you're doing it wrong. But
but on the other hand, I think I've been pretty consistent too across podcasts. It's got to be both. It's got to be the bottom up initiative, the grassroots initiative, people will say, and it's got to be the top down. You got to have somebody in the leadership who understands what the reason is and is supporting it.
Yeah, they can provide the guardrails too, right, for the rest of the organization. So stay between these guardrails, we'll be fine.
What's a Turn the Ship Around book? I can't remember the guy's name.
The Army guy.
No, it's Marquet. I can't remember his name.
Not Team of Teams, not North Star, not Turn the Ship Around book.
Team of Teams.
North Star, no.
That's a leadership
book. Yeah.
Turn the Ship Around is the one where he's the submarine captain, and he comes in, and his bridge crew or whatever is like, I'm preparing to dive or whatever, and he's like, cool, do it or whatever, instead of like permission to dive. He changed the whole.
I was saying, ask for permission. Just
yeah.
assume you got permission.
Exactly.
For a good decision you're gonna make, and
that was it. Yeah, I read that. I can't remember. I'm gonna kick myself because I know his name, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
It is Mark something, I think.
That was the thing about that is like, that's great that you basically introduce agility to your submarine crew, but like as soon as he transitioned out as captain or moved to another ship, what do you think happened to that crew when a stereotypical captain or commander or whatever came in and is like, wait, what do you mean? Like,
yeah, how dare you not ask permission?
Yeah.
It's great. The grassroots thing is great, but at some point, like the leadership has to have that culture. They have to be trained. They have to have that culture, and it has to stay with the organization. It has to become part of the organization. So your organization is not going to hire somebody in this case it's Navy, so that's like, forget about it. The organization is not going to hire somebody in who is not in line with those principles.
Right.
Well, I feel like we started with co-location and
we ended up with submarines.
We totally didn't stay on that topic.
Yeah. Like Red October. Was it Red Hunt October?
Red October.
Yes,
it's a Russian submarine.
Red October.
Yes.
That's it, yeah.
Welcome to my Russian submarine. How did that casting, like, I want to be in that casting room. Like, who we should get to captain the Russian submarine? Who's that? Sean Connery.
Scottish, yeah. Was he Scottish? What is he? British? Scottish?
He was Scottish. He was Scottish, yeah.
Can he do a Russian accent? But like, no, he can't do a Russian accent. He'd be great. The greatest Scottish Russian submarine captain ever. This will be the trailer for this podcast. For Red October.
Sorry, do the trailer and then put our heads on the different people.
We're in 39 minutes, but out of that 39 minutes, half of it is nonsense.
Yeah, we're probably about 20 minutes in.
Yeah. So there's 3 topics we have left, which is, 2, but I added a third one, which is yes and versus no, which I also consider meet them where they are as part of yes and. It's all part of that. And then type of people coming to Scrum classes.
Oh, yeah. Didn't we have a segment on one of the podcasts on meet them where they are?
We do, yeah. We don't have anything about the types of people coming to Scrum classes because I have this theory that project managers, PMP certified project managers, will just take a CSM class so they can apply for more roles and be more marketable.
Yeah, so as a PMP guy, I could tell you I didn't do that, but because I went with the ACP first, and I was thinking, I know PMP, right?
Yeah.
Let's just talk about what the Institute wants to do. You might be right. You might be right there. They might do that just because, that's the trend. People want Scrum Masters and not project managers. Although, that said, I've seen quite a few positions open for Agile project managers, and they pay more than a Scrum Master.
Yeah, someone with PM and Agile background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have Agile in front of it.
I think in class when we typically have, let's say we have 15 to 18 students, maybe one, is a PM. Or maybe sometimes I'll go from none, and then I'll have two. Or then I'll have one, and then I'll have none, and then a couple. But usually it's people in organizations that have been sent by an organization to either explore Scrum, understand Scrum, they're trying to do it, but they don't know how, so they're sending their own people. It's not usually like somebody that's just trying to switch careers. I mean, that's rare, at least what I've seen. It's usually they've either started trying to implement Scrum, and so they're sending other people to class, or they've been trying to do it for a while on their own. They have no idea what they're doing, so now they're sending people to class. So usually it's that. And then to see how it's taught versus what they're doing. Like compare the differences of what are you telling us versus what are we doing.
Yeah.
And every single time it's, that's not what we're doing. Oh, we're not doing it right. Oh, we're not doing Scrum. Like single, no one's ever like, actually, you know what? We're actually doing pretty good, and everything you said is what we're doing. It's never the case.
That's actually a pretty good segue into the subject, which is what are some of the preconceived notions people have when they come into Scrum training.
It's so varied because I'll get usually in the beginning of class I'll do an activity where I'll say, okay, tell me your years of Scrum experience, so 0 to 10, and usually I'll get everybody in class is like less than a year, and you have like
the bell
one.
curve shifted to the left.
Yeah,
right,
you
when
have
do the lineup.
and you have like one or two people that have maybe like a few years experience, and usually it's most people come in not understanding the different what we called roles in the 2017 guide, but now in the accountabilities. They don't understand the differences. They don't understand where the lines are drawn between the product owner, the scrum master, and development team. They don't. That's always the most confusing part. Is usually who's responsible for what. And then the second from that is usually, how do I solve problems in my organization? How do I deal with my stakeholders? We're trying to do more Scrum. How do I? But the class doesn't cover that. The class isn't about coach. The class is a little bit about who coaches and who should be the Scrum Master, right? And maybe how to manage stakeholders in the product owner class. But it's not about solving your specific problem. So it's like a lot of it's out of scope. Like can't even it's a base foundation class.
Yeah, that's your job.
Yeah, that's your job. Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And the person that's supposed to help you has got soft skills, and good luck. Good luck out there.
There's a little more on that, not a whole lot though, in the CSP class. But
Yeah.
these people that come in with those kinds of ideas are looking to backfit what they learn in class and think, how am I going to put all these roles, let's say, right, on a RACI chart? Things like that.
It's one of the nice things of being a trainer. It's like you're like, here's what you're supposed to do, and good luck out there. See ya. Have a nice time. All right. And versus a coach, it's like you got to come in there and you're dealing with them every day. And you're like, oh my goodness. You're like, I told you not to do this, or you're not listening. Trainer, I'm just like, yep, here we go. Here's the book. Here's what to do. Good luck to you. And I'll see you on LinkedIn. That's it. It's done. I don't have to worry about it.
See you on LinkedIn. Oh, man. I saw that on a poll on LinkedIn recently, which was something along the lines of, is every Scrum Master an Agile coach or something like that? I can't remember. So sometimes
the answer is yes. They're supposed to be. Like you shouldn't need Agile coaches. All the Scrum Masters should be doing that. The problem is companies don't listen to them.
And they're not empowered and all of that.
Yeah. That's kind of been my thing. Every Scrum Master is an Agile coach, but not every Agile coach is a Scrum Master.
That's true.
Some nonsense like that.
I could agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I throw out snippets of Zen like that, and they make sense. And this might be a good one because you might not agree with this one. I think Scrum Master is kind of a crap job title. I think, or role, whatever you want to say. Accountability.
I don't like the new change.
I think,
all right, roles, less letters to spell.
Good, we're on the same page now. If you're going to call the product owner a product owner, you should call the Scrum Master the process owner, because then it gives more weight to what do they do. Well, they help you enforce the process, or they help you understand the process. They help you be trained on the process. They help you keep the process. Please disagree with me.
Yeah, I could see that, because I think one of the things we say when you're doing a transformation is you need a process coach at the board level, or the executive team, which is your quote Scrum Master. But you're right, they're in charge of the process. And we always say in class, you're a master of nobody. You're a master of the process.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any thoughts of that.
I agree. I think, though, in real life, what happens oftentimes is people don't understand that what a Scrum Master does. So they end up being like a general dog's body that does everything. And they end up being the team secretary and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I've seen Scrum Masters where they do things for the team.
Scribe.
Right, yeah. And then so the day they're not there, the team is lost. Like stand-ups. The team just waits
to
for
me,
them.
that's a bad Scrum Master that didn't properly teach the team to do it without them.
Correct.
But you're right. Maybe if it was like process master or process owner, people would get it. Oh, you're in charge of the process, not the actual output, not the actual work, not the actual people, but the process.
Well, I mean that's
or process coach or something.
That's in the lane of their job responsibilities. Like, I'm going to help you understand the productivity of your team. I'm going to help you understand I'm going to make it more visible what your team is doing. I'm going to make it more visible the metrics that you should be paying attention to. I'm going to help you understand the things that you're not trained to understand. You're basically owning the process that the teams are following. So like a nomenclature change, because like Scrum Master, I immediately feel a development technical lead. I immediately feel their stare on me to be like, oh, you're my master now? Like, what's that about? What's that about? I know what I'm doing. Let me step back from my own personality for a second. Where I would enter an organization, you're already going to be up and butting heads with a technical lead who's like, I don't need you. I know how to develop software. I know the process of developing software, right? I just need some developers, and just leave me alone and leave me to be quiet or whatever, and I'll figure it out. So like a lot of times when I've been in large organizations, I immediately will feel that coming from technical leads, right? Maybe I won't butt heads with them because I understand when to and when not to engage, but I will know when somebody is resisting, the change of we don't need this overhead process or whatever. I know how to do things.
Yeah, so the issue really that I have is with the word master more than the word scrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
To your point, people think a master is here and I was subservient
right.
to this master, right? And that's where it leads to this kind of this idea where the team is not going to do anything unless there's somebody to say, do this, do this, do this. So yeah, I see that a lot.
There you go. Take that back and
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Scrum Master or process owner, or process coach, or Scrum coach, or Scrum process coach. Yeah,
I've even gotten
Scrum owner and baker. I don't know.
I don't even want to use the term coach anymore because I think that's also like in that same vein. It's like, whoa, it's like
process mentor. I don't like coach. Mentor is someone that tells you the answers. Coach is someone that asks you questions for you come to the aha on your own. I'm more of a mentor than coach. I don't want to.
Yeah, I've run into so many people that the big ego people. Like, the people I'm talking about, especially in a large organization, the big ego people who are like, "Oh, you're going to coach me? You're going to be my coach? Come on."
Usually it's not the devs, it's the tech leads.
No, it's not. It's usually not
the architects.
It's usually not the developers. It's usually not the. Yeah, I mean,
because typically in those organizations, the devs are the bottom of the totem pole.
Right.
So that doesn't matter to them. Yeah.
I'm even like I'm struggling to find where I'm going with this. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I pick a lane and I'm like, I'm just going to drive in this direction.
You're like, that's it.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with it, but usually
go off road.
Actual development, the actual team members, the development team members, that's not the issue. They usually will catch on very quickly of what we're trying to implement.
They enjoy it. They like it.
Yeah, they like the predictability of like, this is what we're going to do, and this is how much of my day is going to be blocked out for communicating with other people, and then I'm going to go off and heads down do my work or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if I need somebody else from my team, or if I need to bounce something off my tester because I'm not sure how it's going to be tested or whatever, like I'll get on a call with them and we'll do it or whatever.
Solving a problem creatively.
Yeah, they like to know. They like to have predictability of their process, and the teams catch on very quickly. It's the overhead. Oh, I almost don't even want to call it overhead. I almost don't want to call management. Like I touched on this also briefly in the last podcast.
Middle management's overhead to me.
Yes. but like I almost don't want to bring that up because a project manager, a old school project manager by role, they are middle management. They are not individual.
Also overhead.
Yeah, they are not individual contributors.
If Scrum's done correctly, they're overhead. If Scrum's done properly, 100%, you don't need a project manager.
No, well, you won't need. Like, where would you? So let's say we bring you in, or Fred. Let's say we Fred, I'm gonna bring you in. I own the company. I can do whatever I want. I'm a CEO.
That'd be amazing.
I'm gonna bring you in, make whatever change you want. I've got these project managers. I don't want to just fire them all because they're listen. Most project
know your
managers,
company. They know the political
most project
landscape.
managers I've worked with, and we talked about this last time we were here. Most project managers that I work with, they are very smart. They're very quick. They basically are in middle management, but they don't necessarily have any kind of supervisory skill or whatever, or responsibility, skill. Yeah, right. But they're very smart. They can catch on very quickly. They understand my company. They understand my products potentially, and my customers very deep. Like, what is their role?
Yeah, typically, if I was going into that company, I would typically talk with each project manager. One question I would ask each one is tell me, do you care more about what we're building, or do you care more about how we're building it? Mm-hmm. See what they answer to that. Because if they say I care more about what we're building and why we're building it, then they might be a good candidate for a product owner. Yeah. If they say care more about how we're building it, then they might be a good candidate for a Scrum Master. So I start with that to kind of put them in buckets to start with there. Then it's a mind shift training. Then it's a mind now. So now they take CSM class. Now they take CSPO class. And probably all of them would probably go to Certified Scrum Master class, and then some of them would go to CSPO class, depending on where they fall. Yeah. And then repurpose them. We always joke, fire all the project managers, but like, really, if you train them properly, you should be able to repurpose them. But then now they're repurposed. But the thing to remember is that they spent years in the command and control style, because typically a project manager, once they start a project, they're the ones that come up with the Gantt chart. They're the ones that come up with the resource list. They're the ones that come up with the budget. They're the ones that come up with the timeline. They're the ones that track the risk. They're the ones that handle the communication. So it's all on their shoulders. So of course they're used to cracking the whip.
Yeah.
Like commanding, like it's my idea, it's my plan, it's my solution. I have to crack the whip. So now you're telling them to shift that mindset over to all those things you're responsible before have now are shared between the product owner, the scrum master, and the development team. And you're just in charge of the process. That's a hard thing to move your mindset to. And so I think that you train them, you figure out where they might be repurposed, but then you need to closely monitor and coach them for a limited period of time to get used to that. Like, okay, I understand why you're doing that, because that's your old PM coming out of you, but now you're in a Scrum Master seat, so we'd handle that differently, and this is how. And point them as they do those things incorrectly. They're good intent, but as they do those things not meaning to, point them out at that moment, like, okay, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah, letting go is hard, right?
Yeah.
They have to let go of that mentality, and it is difficult.
Yeah. And there might be a small subset, because usually what's the rule with change management? Like 20% of the people won't do it, so they end up leaving. Like 20% of the people will fight you. 20% of the people will adopt the change and be happy for it. And I forgot what the last 20% was, but there's always going to be
They're the champions.
Yeah, maybe the champions. Yeah, there's going to be a small subset. Even if you had like, okay, I got 6 PMs, we could probably say 4, and 2 of them probably not going to work here anymore. So, what were we talking about? I forgot.
We were talking about Windows NT.
I interrupted you with my sneezing.
We're talking about project managers and retraining
Oh, that's right.
them.
Retraining them.
It's that mind shift that's sometimes hard, most times hard actually, sometimes easier than other times, but never really easy.
Yeah.
You know, because PMs, I guess by nature of their role, they've just spent so long doing something that to pivot to doing something a different way, it just takes time.
And there was a PM once, I worked with a client. The PM was really type A, awesome project manager traditionally. We switched over to Scrum teams, and they made this PM a Scrum Master. The worst Scrum Master I'd ever seen. Horrible Scrum command and control. The team didn't like them. It was just like butting heads, tension, because they were just trying to drive the whole thing, and it was horrible. So they were gonna fire the guy, but instead they put him in the product owner role. Ended up being an awesome product owner because his personality lended to him saying no to the stakeholders.
Yeah.
Because he didn't care, right? He was just like, no, we're not doing that, right? And so then we had to get a strong Scrum Master to be able to healthily push back against him. So a healthy tension there. Right. And that worked out, right? But so like you have to look at personality. You got to look at, this person's not going to be a good Scrum Master just based on their personality, but they might be a good product owner because they can say no.
That's funny. I recently discovered a video. I should find it and link it in the description for this. But apparently the Army had a policy in World War II where generals could just kick people out of battlefield command. They just recycle people in charge of units.
Nice.
In World War II, the generals had complete autonomy to be like, oh, you're not working as a leader, you're out. And they immediately, you're out, and put somebody else in. And
they should do that.
And they rolled that policy back after Korea and Vietnam. Like in Vietnam, they had some kind of policy. I'm gonna screw this up. I'm so sorry. They had some kind of policy where you had an amount of time until you automatically got rolled out, and because you had that. Oh, well, they're up for, they're going to get rolled out in a couple months anyway. Why bother making that? Anyway, the point is...
Why bother changing now?
Right,
you only got a few more months. Yeah,
the point is that that greatly changed the culture, okay? Whereas the higher you got... And in World War II, apparently in that era, right, in the 40s era, getting recycled into a different position, it wasn't the end of your career. Basically, being like, oh, you're a Scrum Master, the equivalent of what we're talking about. You're a Scrum Master of this team. It's not working. We're gonna move you over and be a Scrum Master for another team. That wasn't the end of your career. It just happened all the time.
Yeah, right person, wrong seat.
Yeah, and sometimes you'd find your way back into a combat unit. Sometimes those commanders would find their way back into combat, but that was a normal thing, and they would do it quickly. So it was like the higher you got in seniority, the less time you had to prove that you were a competent commander before you got You got moved when you weren't showing progress, right? When you weren't showing the right progress. And that got me thinking about onto the same vein as like corporate America is probably the same way as like we don't move fast enough.
Yeah.
You know, to be like, well, this team probably needs something different. Let's move this person. You know, maybe this person is better as a product owner. Let's move him over here and see what he does or whatever. You know, I don't know why that is. Like, the critique in my mind seemed clear. I can't paint a clear picture of how to apply it. But when I was listening to it, like I'm really, now that I'm talking about it so much, I'm going to find it and I'm going to link it in here so everyone can watch it. The video is like an hour long. It's in depth.
That's like the startup mentality, or hire slow, fire fast. It's like if you got the wrong person, you get them out there right. You get them out as fast as possible.
Yeah, but I would think like
get somebody else in.
At the point where you've hired somebody, like something clicked. So
right, but then if they're just not working out, you can't. The idea is the mentality is not to hold on to them and hopefully it'll work out. Maybe they'll come around and
No,
it's
cut
like
the
nope.
Band-Aid.
Yep, you're
Rip it
out
off.
next. Yep.
Yeah.
So you get the right people. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it.
But yeah, it could be we call it the right person, wrong seat, right? The person's got the right culture, right attitude, right aptitude, but they're just in the wrong seat for whatever reason. Then you want to keep them, so you move them somewhere else. Like to your point, like that PM that was a Scrum Master that sucked as a Scrum Master, but PO he did a good job as a PO.
Listen, I could easily see it. I was a product owner for a very short stint. Well, I was a short stint, but it was like almost 3 years for a very short stint. And then I was a Scrum Master for a while, like on contracts when I got into contracting full time. The first contract that I was on where I was just a product owner, where I didn't have to deal with being a Scrum Master anymore, everything clicked in my head. I was like, oh, this is me. You know, the Scrum Master stuff. Sometimes being a Scrum Master, the organization is not really sure about what you do, or like you get coupled with one of these development leads. It's like, I don't really need a Scrum Master. I don't really see a value in it or whatever. You kind of have to justify your role and stuff like that. But as a product owner, like nobody questions anything. You know what I mean? When you say you need something, I remember when I came on as a product owner, I was shocked. I came on as a product owner, purely a product owner, and I was like, hey, we have a mobile app. We have a website. We have 2 different applications. I'm going to write you 2 different roadmaps. And I need 2 different teams to carry out those roadmaps. And the business responded to say, oh, how can we, let me give you whatever you need. Let me bring some people or whatever.
Like I'm not used to this.
Whereas a Scrum Master, I'd have to, yeah, no, exactly.
Like, we need to do retrospectives. Yeah,
Scrum Master,
whatever.
I'm like, this has come up in so many retrospectives, and we think if we did this, we can get X number of percentage of whatever, and then when we split teams, we have to actually prove whatever. I didn't deal with any of that as a product owner. I didn't deal with any of that. I went straight to the business, and I was like, I want to do this. I need this, and this is why I'm trying to do it. Okay, well, boom, you got it.
I agree. I think if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick product owner.
I mean,
enjoy building products. That's different. I like doing. I've been building software for like years. So
listen, I also like to take a step back on that one and kind of like I love doing this on the podcast. I love contradicting myself when I bring things up. I've also been coupled with some Scrum Masters who they can do that thing, that weird thing that Scrum Masters do, where they start asking questions like, "Oh yeah, do you think this?"
That's coaching.
Like there are people that have a natural talent of doing that.
Yeah.
They start asking questions, and the other person's engaged, and they start pulling answers out of them, and they start getting down.
Education teachers are good at that.
That's not my natural talent.
Me neither. That's why I even say I'm more of a mentor than a coach, because I don't like asking all the questions.
Yeah.
You don't have all the answers though if you're a mentor, right?
Yeah,
you should have experience. You should have done it.
Go do that. You have 2 weeks of this. You know, whatever. Done.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Coach, I have no idea, but I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. Hopefully, something will go off.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought I was a good Scrum Master.
Like true coaching is it's questions, all questions.
Like I thought I was a good Scrum Master because I understand all the events. I understand how each one should go. I understand when a high performing team is doing them versus when a team that's still kind of forming is doing them. I understand how to get a team from there, from here to there or whatever. But then occasionally I see a Scrum Master who has a natural talent at doing that, at getting people to work together and pulling things out of people and involving people in the conversation. And I take a step back and I'm like, oh man, Jesus, I'm really bad at that.
Compared,
it'd be. I mean, obviously, you don't want to. Comparison is like the thief of joy, right? Like you don't want to compare yourself. But there are some people that really like you.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. You're like, oh, some people who are good at like early education who know how to like hey kids, let's all get together.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not good with. I know my weak areas. I'm not good with philosophy or theory. Is what I'm not. I'm not good with Scrum theory. It's not because I don't understand it. I just don't like. I can't articulate it. I want tactics. And I'm not like, oh well, you should think about everyone's feelings. It's like, no, just tell me what to do, or I'll tell you what to do, and this is it. Go do this. Right.
That's like
It's like tactical. I like tactical.
That's like but that's like every developer I've ever worked with in my career. It's like, oh no, just tell me what you want me to do.
I don't mean being creative. Like creative, that's fine, but it's more like I'm trying to think of an example, but it's like when you want me to do something tactical, then talk to me. Other than that, I'm not interested in the theory stuff.
I don't know, man.
Like the school, like apply courage to your job. Like, huh? What? I can describe it to you, but no, I can't even think of like, I'm sure I use it all the time, but I can't articulate it.
Right.
It's like, if I need to get something, I get it done. Is that courage? Sure, if you want it to be, but I can't talk about courage all by itself. Or what's the other values? Commitment or focus.
Respect.
It's like, or respect. It's like, oh, well, tell me ways you use respect in your job. Like, I'm not interested in that conversation. It's like, no, I don't want that.
Usually response is, no, I won't. No, go. It's yourself, right? That's a days of respect.
You need me to split a story? Because I'll go do that. You need me to accept this criteria? I'll go do that.
If you give me a real example, like we can work through it, but like sometimes when you give it to me at that high level, my mind will go blank.
Yeah.
Like so, like sometimes at like community events and stuff I go to, and we work through an exercise or whatever that's high level like that, I'll be like, my mind is blank. I don't understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? But if you give me a specific example, like you very briefly touched on something that I want to go in depth on, but I'm not sure I want to because I still have 4 out of 6 stickies.
And we have about 6 minutes.
Oh, man.
Maybe a little more.
I had this weird theory that I don't know if, I think it might be nonsense. A lot of my theories are nonsense, so it's fine. Which is, I don't think, like software development is like it's like a creative process. Mm-hmm. It's like an emergent process. So you need to figure out what you're doing, and then you figure it out along the way. Like that's like the best teams do that. And I have a theory that non-creative people can't hang in software development.
100% agree with you.
Okay.
And can't hang in Scrum software development. They can hang in, here's exactly what to do, build this, and don't deviate. They're fine.
I don't even believe that like real development happens that way. I think that those type of people figure out a way to get themselves into leadership positions, air quotes leadership.
Developers, you're saying?
No, well, maybe developers, but it's more of like project managers who are, or like directors of development, like that level. I really don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. These are my favorite topics, ones that I don't know where I'm going with.
I do agree with you that there are developers that don't want to be creative. It's like, tell me what to do, and if you don't tell me what to do, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So that's a big mind shift change to help teams overcome when you go to Scrum. It's like before they were hand-fed what to do by some designer, some BA, whatever, architect. Now they're solve the problem. It's deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
But then if you take a good developer, to your point, going to careers, I'm not sure this is related to what you're saying, but like I've seen too many times where you have a really good developer.
Me neither.
They're really good at what they do, and then you promote them to a management role because they're so good, but they suck at management.
Yeah.
Right.
And you've now just taken your best, I want to say asset, but like, and you put them in a role that they're not good at.
Yeah.
And then they suck at that. They're no longer in development. They're no longer in coding. So there's and they don't get trained properly. Yeah. So there's always that risk.
Well, the best equation I can do is like you have like TV and movie executives who like greenlight pictures and films and stuff, but like they've never written anything creative in their life.
Never acted.
It's the same thing to me. It's like you're in charge of a development department, especially people. I don't really know who I'm criticizing at this point, but like they've never written anything creative in their life. They wouldn't know anything creative.
So a writing department,
smack them in the face,
convert it over.
But like the typical developer is a very creative person.
Yeah, I would say they want to be.
They want.
That's what makes Scrum fun. If Scrum's done properly, it should be fun. It's like, we got a business problem. Can you guys help me solve it? And like they go off, and the whole team goes and solves it. And that's the fun part of it. Except when you have your designer's not part of the team, and your BA's not part of the team, and the architect's not part of the team, then you just get a code monkey machine that you just feed stuff in here.
I'm gonna pull in the same experience because just to keep the flow moving in this conversation, which was the company I came into where I established a roadmap for the first time. They had a bunch of developers who were contracted developers, right? They were offshore contracted developers. The company would ask for new features, and I would come to the contracted developers and I would say, we want this new feature where a customer can log into the portal and do XYZ, whatever it is. And they're like, oh, well, you need to give me a screen design of how to implement it. Now, and I would tell them, I'd be like, no. Case. I would tell them, no. I was like, listen, you're the technology, they would React. React.
You're a professional.
End. I was like, no. I was like, you're a React developer.
Figure it out. Yeah.
I was like, you're a React developer. It's not your first project. I'm not going to give you a front end. I'm going to tell you what I want. I'll tell you what, because they weren't like 10 plus years. They were like 3 years experienced developers. So they weren't new, but they weren't exactly
senior. They had enough to come
okay?
up with something.
But I would tell them, I'd be like, I was a product owner in that instance. In that instance, that the specific developer I was working with on that team, give me minimum 2, maybe 3 examples of what this would look like in the interface. And you show it to me in the demo, okay? So I was willing to pay for the work to be done in duplicate. You show me that work in the demo. My stakeholders were in the demo. My stakeholders who included the customer and leadership, by the way. And he would say, okay, I have this story, and here's one way we could tackle it. Here's another way we could tackle it. I was willing to pay my development hours on that project to have 2 demos, okay? In the demo, I had the users, and I could say, I like demo A. What do you guys like? Well, I like demo A as well. This is what I don't like about demo B or whatever. And then that developer could hear me talking to the users in the demo, and he would learn what the users liked in those demos.
I'd be happy with even one option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. But like at a certain point, I mean, at that point in my career, it'd been 15 plus years at that point of working on development teams. So like if I see somebody who's like clearly a junior developer, I'm going to give that person developers in general. I've been with developers who are very, very good in front of users.
Yeah, customer facing.
And I've also been with developers who are
not customer facing.
Yeah,
but get at what they do.
Maybe they're not customer facing, but like I tend to see the potential in people. Okay, so I see somebody who has a junior amount of experience. Maybe they have not been put in front of customers. So I will at least try to put them in front. Mm-hmm. If I know I'm going to be in the room with them when they're in front of again, everyone's remote, right? But if I know I'm going to be in the room with them when they're in front of customers, I will be able to step in. Right. Even if they slip up, I'll be able to step in to say, I like this, do that again, do whatever again, you know what I mean? And they work with me every day. So they have no stress when I'm talking to them. But when they're in front of the customer, they have a lot of stress.
Yeah,
maybe they stutter, maybe they delay, maybe they
practice.
Right, yeah, but if they can focus on just demoing to me, they gain a lot of skill in that instance. So in that instance, I was able to put the developers and the customers together with the product owner in the middle. So it was like that's like the purpose of the demo. Again, I forgot where I was going with this. So.
What I like to see visualized is a map where you have all the topics we talked about, and then you have like a little like dotted line of all the directions we went, and then back, and then forward, and down, and up. Like that Calvin and Hobbes, was it, when he walks around the whole park?
Yeah.
That'd be kind of funny to watch. Any quick ones? What else do you have on there?
I have the one that I really want to talk about, which is yes and.
Oh, I
won't have 4 minutes.
We got 4 minutes. So what's your hiccup with that?
I like no. That's my hiccup. I don't like.
See, the problem with no is that it's so like, well, I don't want to hear no. I'm paying you. I'm the executive, and you're telling me no. I'm like, I don't like that answer.
Yeah, well, from the Scrum Master perspective, I understand it because you're going to get beat up, and you're not supposed to say no. And most people that are Scrum Masters are very, very affable people anyway, and they don't want to be seen as people saying no. They don't want to be seen as negative. However, like that sabotages them when they move into the product management space because no is your best friend. Your backlog consists of like 90% no and 10% yes, because that's what your team's working on right now. I don't know, maybe other product spaces are different, but like the product spaces I've been in, you get a ton of inputs, and you have to be like, no, that's not within my vision, that's not within our budget, that's not within our ability. And then the 10% is, this is our roadmap, this is where our company is going, this is where our product is going.
Yeah.
You know, you need to get good at saying no. Saying yes and is cool and everything, but like you really need to sharpen your no axe.
I guess I agree with you. I'm just thinking, like, I think it's like the people you can say no to me, those people are still being said no to.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a technique for people that you got that one stakeholder that you can't say no to for some reason. I'm not saying you can't learn to. I think it's also your personality versus knowing how hard you can push back.
Yeah.
I think some of the best product owners I've had, like your point, were good at saying no.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like no. It was an argument. It was, no, we're not doing that. Yeah, blah, blah, no, we're not doing it. And then we'd be like, you guys drop. And they'd have to argue it, hash it out, butt heads. So it's not like it wasn't like, oh, no, we're not doing that. Everyone's like, sure, we'll just listen to your no. It was a hard fight to get that no. But I think you can still say no with a yes. So you're still saying no. You're just saying, yes, I'd love to do that for you. Which one of these things would you like me to take out?
Yeah.
Right. And that's still a no with a yes. Cause it's like, okay, well, I don't want to pull out those things. And then it's like, well, you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do both. I'd love to do that for you, but I can't do both. You got to pull one of these out and then we'll pull this in. Or yes, I love that. I love to do that for you, but you're going to have to extend the deadline by another 2 sprints.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't do that. But you can't do both. So I'm saying, yeah, I'd love to do that for you. Just give me 2 more weeks. I can't, but you have to do it within the 2 weeks. Nope, can't do that. That I can't do.
Yeah, that opportunity cost argument is always
Yeah.
a good one to present, right? Yeah, sure, we can do that, but right?
Yeah.
What do you want to take out? Descope something,
Right.
Or extend the timeline or whatever.
I looked at that. Remember, we just prioritized, and these are the things you said were most important. So are these things not important anymore?
Right.
Remember, you promised Matt that you'd get this thing done. Do you want me to can't tell Matt you're not doing that anymore?
Yeah.
Right. So it's more of a I love to, but you got to make some changes here. But then if they don't want to do either of the changes, then you use the hard. Then it's like, no, that I can't do. I'm trying to help you here. Meet me in the middle here, and let's compromise.
All right, lights are gonna go out on us in like 2 seconds.
Well, it's been fun. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah.
All right, wrap up.
What do we do for wrap up? I forgot.
We ask people to send their topics that they like to talk about.
Agile podcast questions
And
at
then
Gmail. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
There's the ending sing-along tune that you sing on the
comment.
closeout.
Yeah, comment below.
There's a jingle you sing, don't you? I'm
No.
just kidding. I don't know. Well, thanks for having me.
Oh man,
Oh,
yeah.
this is fun.
I like to end these awkwardly.
You'd be like, the end.
Done.